Most beginners think web development is just HTML and CSS, but that is far from being the truth. If you don't understand how website actually works, from front end to back end, you will end up learning things in the wrong order. In this video, I will break down exactly what web development really means, how static and dynamic websites differs, and where HTML fits in, so you start with clarity. So what exactly is web development? In simple terms, web development is the art of creating, building, and maintaining websites to ensure efficient performance. But that doesn't define web development. Web development goes far beyond just creating web pages. Web development combines beautiful designs, interactive elements, and technical functionality to create a user-friendly website that works seamlessly across different devices and browsers. To achieve this, web developers need knowledge of front-end technologies like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, as well as back-end technologies such as Python, Node.js, or PHP, depending on stack being used. This combination helps create websites that are both visually appealing and technically functional. This brings us to an important distinction that confuses many beginners. There is a lot of confusion between web designers and web developers, but they have distinct roles. Web designers focuses on the visual concept. They are responsible for how a website looks and feels across different devices, from desktop devices to mobile devices. Designers typically need only basic knowledge of coding, while web developers, on the other hand, they are the ones responsible for building the functional elements of a site. They take the design concepts and bring them to life through codes. Developers need in-depth knowledge of programming languages such as Node.js, Python, Rust, and many more. In simple terms, designers determine how the website should look and how users will interact with it visually, while developers determine how websites should function behind the scenes. Although their responsibility differs, both roles must collaborate closely to ensure the final product is both visually engaging and technically reliable. This naturally leads us to understand the two main branches of web development. Web development are split into two main areas, the front-end and the back-end development. The front-end development. This focuses on the visual representation and the user interface. It is basically when developers write code that the browser can understand and renders. When you write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that creates what user sees and interacts with, that is front-end development. The core languages here are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, while back-end development involves server-side functionality. This includes database, storage, user input processing, and ensuring website security. Back-end developers uses technologies such as Node.js, PHP, Python, and many more to write applications that run on web servers. It's important to understand that front-end and back-end are not isolated systems. They constantly communicate with each other through APIs. When a user submits a form, logs in, or requests data, the front-end sends a request to the back-end. The back-end processes that request, interacts with the database if necessary, and returns the structured response that the front-end then displays to the users. Here is how it works. These back-end languages fetch data from the database, assembles that data into a final files, and then send those files to the browsers as the response. These processes can be thought to as the behind-the-scene logics. Let's understand where all this code actually runs. The client side versus the server side. Client side refers to the user's device and software they use to access the web, usually a web browser like Chrome or Firefox. The client handles everything the user sees and interacts with directly, like buttons, forms, and visual elements. When you visit the website, here is what happens. The server side sends a copy of the website codes in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to your browser, which then processes and renders it into the visual page you see. While the server side, this refers to the powerful remote computers that serve data to the client upon request. The server handles all the behind-the-scenes logics that the user never sees, like checking login credentials or managing database. Here is how the server side works. They constantly listen for incoming requests like keep me logged in, then process that data according to the business rules, and finally send back a response like login successful. It's important to know that client side and server side work together seamlessly. When you fill out a form or click a button, your browser, the client side, sends a request to the server. The server processes that request, retrieves or updates data as needed, and sends back the results. This continuous interaction ensures the website remains dynamic, responsive, and secure for users. Now let's talk about the two types of website, the static website and the dynamic website. Static websites are simple files that are already prepared and just sent from the server to the browser without any transformation. What you see is exactly what is stored on the server. While the dynamic website, however, they display pages that are assembled differently each time someone visits. The content gets generated by an application running on the server. This means the files need to be created or customized for each visitor based on things like their login status, preference, or actions. In practical terms, static websites are easier and faster to load but offer limited interactivities, while dynamic websites are more flexible and personalized, allowing features like users' accounts, real-time updates, and e-commerce functionalities. Most modern websites use a combination of both, depending on the need of the users and the business. Let's recap the core languages of web development. Front-end development, what user sees. HTML for structures, CSS for styling, JavaScript for interactivities. The backend development runs on servers, Python, Node.js, PHP. These languages work together to manage data, database, and security behind the scenes. Understanding these core languages is essential because each serves a specific purpose. HTML gives content structure, CSS ensures it looks visually appealing, and JavaScript makes it interactive and responsive to users' action. On the backend languages like Python, Node.js, and PHP, they handle data processing, communicate with database, and maintain the logics that powers the website. Although developers may specialize in either front-end or back-end, learning the basics of both allows for better collaboration and a stronger understanding of how website functions as a whole. Full-stack developer, for example, can bridge the gap between the two, creating seamless experience for both users and the server's infrastructure. And that wraps up our high-level overview of web development. You now understand the difference between designers and developers, front-end and back-end, client and server, and static and dynamic websites. In our next video, we will dive deeper into each of these topics. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more web development content.